Hello, my name is Jason J. Rock Houston. Tonight it's my great pleasure to be speaking with Ralph, the lead guitar player, and lead singer Julian from a great tribute band based out of Covina, California called Strangeways. It's a tribute band to Morrissey and the Smiths. So I guess the best place to start off with you guys, if you could share with me how you first became a fan of Morrissey and the Smiths. I was curious, did you guys first become aware of him because he was a singer in the Smiths, or first become aware of him through his solo work?
Well, this is Julian, and I actually was a fan of the Smiths, so that's how I became familiar with Morrissey, listening to their albums when they came out, back in the 80s, and that's where my journey started, and have since obviously followed Morrissey on his own and doing his solo work, from more or less from the beginning.
And how about you, Ralph? How did you first become a fan?
For me, it was somewhat the opposite. I first became aware of him from his solo records, and sort of worked my way backwards and got introduced to the Smiths and sort of revisited all the back catalog upon hearing like Morrissey's first solo tape, I think back then. It was like early 90s, like 90, 91.
Wow.
And just sort of worked backwards and just got enthralled with the music of the Smiths and Johnny Marr's guitar playing, and that's all I listened to for about 5 years.
Well, and let me ask you guys, because a lot of times I think a tribute band's got to have like a nice little niche, and I think you've got that going for yourself in the sense, a couple things. Number one, I'm not aware of any other tribute band that's paying tribute to the Smiths or Morrissey, so I think you guys definitely got that going for yourself, as far as people coming out to check out the show. And then the other thing is, I think it's a cool idea that you're not just covering, all Smiths or all Morrissey. You're kind of giving people a mixture of both. I was curious, when you guys first put this project together, what was the thinking process as far as forming the band? I mean, that's a cool idea right there. You're going to cover, his solo work as well as what he did with the Smiths.
Well, this is kind of an interesting story, actually, because we didn't really intend on starting a band. Initially, Ralph and we were going to go see a Morrissey show he was playing here in L.A.
Yeah.
And I had known that Ralph was a musician for quite some time, and we had never really done anything together, and I'm sort of an amateur singer at that point. And he decided to bring over his guitar. We were getting together before the show, and decided to kind of play some acoustic songs of the Smiths, and I was going to sing along. And long story short, we just it started as a little bit of a hobby, but his brother kind of came in and started playing bass with us, and that was kind of the start. We began playing little clubs as a three-piece.
Wow.
With a drum machine, and from there it just kind of grew into something that we really enjoyed doing. And a couple years later, it became a five-piece, and we started playing, clubs for hundreds of kids, and it's actually become quite the passion project, I guess you could say.
And talk about the response you guys immediately got. I mean, like you said, you started this out. This project started out kind of just as a fun thing for you guys to get together and kind of jam and do, be able to play some music. But were you surprised, like when you played the first show and seeing, kind of response? What was the immediate response you got?
I guess for me, the response that I got was nobody really kind of knew. I actually didn't even know that I could pull off this kind of voice singing kind of thing. I never intended to be a singer in that sense, to pay tribute to Morrissey. So I think a lot of the people that I knew, that knew me personally, that came to see our very first show, were surprised by my singing ability.
Wow.
And I don't know about, like I said, Ralph is a musician, so I think a lot of people knew of his ability as a guitar player. But then when we all came together, I think people were generally pretty pleasantly surprised by what we were doing.
And
I agree that the reactions that we're getting were not. I don't want to say surprising. That makes it sound like, of course, we were going to do that. But I was happy that we were getting this kind of response, and that people were coming to the shows, and just slowly building our
following or fan base, so to speak.
Fan base, and just the whole scene in general. 80s and new wave clubs that are popping up all over Southern California. But going back to your other question, Jason, is there actually is quite a few handful of other you know, tribute bands out there that are to the Smiths and Morrissey. So
wow, okay, wow.
I don't think it's a competitive thing. It's more like everyone's just embracing their fanship for the band and paying respect to Morrissey.
Yeah, well, that's great to, you know, that's,
in our own way.
Yeah, that's great to hear. You know, I mean, you just educate me on some of their. You know, I'm always on Facebook, like looking for, you know, bands to interview and stuff. And I actually, I'll be honest, the way I found you guys, came across your page was, I seen an ad you had up on the Facebook tribute page. That's how I find a lot of these bands. And you know, there's some bands that, you know, post on there all the time, and you see them all over the place. And that was the first time I'd actually seen an ad from your band, and I thought, wow, you know, how cool is that? You know, I'll be honest, I'm not a huge Smiths or Morrissey fan myself, but I thought, how cool is that there's actually somebody out there, you know, covering this band. I mean, you know, there's like half a dozen, you know, AC/DC tributes, half a dozen, you know, Led Zeppelin tributes, and even as you sit here and tell me that there are other Morrissey and Smith tributes out there, you know, I'll have to check into that. I'm not as aware of that, but you know, the word, I guess, has to spread. You guys are the first thing that I'm aware of as far as a group out there covering this material, and I think it's great that, you know, you're out there doing what you guys do, and also saying, you know, hey, we're not the only ones. So I got to ask you, Ralph, being the kind of more seasoned musician, when the project was first coming together, did you have any reservations about forming a tribute band? You know, when you're a guy that's probably played a lot of original music throughout your years.
Right. No, I didn't, because at the time I played shows doing original music for years, and written and recorded a lot of my own stuff and put it out there as well. But no reservations, because I played a lot of these Smith songs for years and years, about 10 years.
Wow.
So a lot of it was already, you know, somewhat second nature to me, because I was very comfortable playing these songs. I've been playing them, you know, just by myself, along to the records for years, and just to practice and learning how to, you know, the styles and techniques that, you know, Johnny Marr or Alan White, you know, the guitar players that Morrissey's played with.
Yeah. And so, how many years
I
is?
had a lot of reservations, you know.
Yeah, the reason I say that is, you know, I gotta tell you guys, the reason I started doing these interviews is I've been to a lot of these tribute shows myself, and I've enjoyed every one I've ever been to. I can't say I've really seen a bad one yet. I mean, I'm sure there are some that aren't as good, but my experience has been pretty positive, and I've seen all the hard work and dedication goes into putting on a show like, you know, what you guys do. And on the flip side of that, there's a huge misconception. A lot of people are under the impression, oh, guys that playing, you know, musicians that are in tribute bands or failed musicians, they couldn't make it doing their own thing. And like I said, I've been to enough shows now I can say that's not the case. And like you said, there's plenty, like anything, there's plenty of, you know, bands that, you know, it's kind of one of those things where the cream rises to the top. Like I said, there's a half a dozen Led Zeppelin tributes. Well, you know, you got to be a really good Led Zeppelin tribute, you know, to really stand out from all the others, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and we've been at it. I mean, this isn't our full-time career doing a tribute band.
Yeah.
We all have our own separate, you know,
lives
and careers, and we do it for the love of the music. And, you know, we've been doing it for about 8 years now.
Oh, cool.
And, you know, 8 years is a good amount of time to be doing this.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would actually kind of add to that, Jason, is that, you know, there are a handful of other bands out there doing this kind of tribute.
Yeah.
I think the thing that sets us apart, the thing I like to sort of kind of point out, is that regarding tribute bands, a lot of these bands do the tribute where they do kind of an impression, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
They can dress up and kind of take on the air of being the band that people are going to see. And certainly there isn't anything wrong with that. It adds to the experience.
Yeah.
But I personally don't resemble Morrissey in any way, in any physical way. And I'm not British. So part of what I think we do, the thing that sets us apart, is that we just really focus on the music and the integrity and the authenticity of how we play the music. I like to tell people they can come to our show and you can close your eyes and listen to the music and feel like you're there with that band that you're so familiar with, that you love. You can hear the songs the way we play them, and it gives you that feeling that you get when you listen to the record. So that's kind of the approach that we take. Sure, we kind of try to dress the part a little bit just to give a little bit of that effect, but ultimately what our main focus is to really give you that musical experience. Yeah,
and you know, it's interesting you say that, Julian, because I was going to say, you know, a lot of these tribute bands, I like to call it like rock and roll theater, like you say, where they actually, there are bands that where, they actually dress the part so much, that the guy looks like the, guy he's paying tribute to. And that's an experience in itself that I really, that I love those type of bands. But at the same time, like, I'm kind of interested to hear that, like you said, before you started doing this, that you were really what you'd consider a professional singer. And once you started paying the tribute to Morrissey and that, you kind of were surprised at your ability to be able to perform these songs. But I think part of it's got to be the fact that maybe you're a fan of this music, and so being that you already know these songs, you've listened to these songs for a good portion of your life. When you hit the stage, you know every word to these songs. There's no pressure to really, like if this was an original band, you'd have to know all the words and everything. So I think that's part of what works for you, is the fact that there's not that pressure as if this was a an original act.
Right. It's the idea that I would need to necessarily, for me personally, put on a bit of a costume, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
With regards to maybe even possibly going on stage and speaking in a British accent.
Yeah.
That nature to sort of give the illusion. I think is for me not an authentic approach.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like when I sing the songs and I give the kind of performance and vocally resemble Morrissey in the way that I can, gives a great effect and a great experience to the audience. So, and I've had a lot of people come up to me after shows and say, they'll say something like, "Oh my God, you sound just like him," and I appreciate the compliments, and I know that I couldn't possibly sound just like him.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're having that experience gives me great joy in feeling like we've done our job.
Yeah, an interesting thing, and again, tribute bands typically go one of two ways. They're the bands, like we say, get dressed up in the costume, so to speak, and they really are all about the look and the emulating sound wise and everything 100%. And there are bands out there that are really good at it. But as we sit here talking, I'm looking on your Facebook page, the band's Facebook page, and you definitely, I can say, look nothing like Morrissey. But I will say this, in this photo, but in the photos I'm looking at. But in the photos I'm looking at, okay, what impresses me, you hold the mic like he does. Like you said, you kind of wear the same type of clothes that he would wear on stage. I mean, you're not up there in your, jeans and t-shirts. So people come to the show, they're kind of getting that experience as close as they possibly can. And you're not trying to mimic the guy. But again, I'm pretty impressed with just the fact that, you're holding the mic the way he does, kind of the way you're dancing up there. In this picture I'm looking at, you kind of got the move. So you're as close as you possibly can get, and that tells me right there that you must have done your homework, or been somewhat of a fan to be able to get those dance moves down and the way you hold the mic.
It's kind of funny you mentioned that. One of our recent shows, that someone came up to me and actually said to me afterwards that even though we're doing a Morrissey or Smith's tribute band, I was compared somewhat to Elvis, and in fact it made me giggle, and I thought, okay, I'll take that. I'll take an Elvis comparison in terms of what I do on stage. But really, again, it comes down to all of us, the five of us in this band, really committing to the integrity of the music. That's the bottom line.
And so let me ask you guys, is it hard to come up with a set list? I mean, obviously, you got to play the hits that everybody wants to hear, but I mean, like, you guys are Morrissey fans and Smith fans yourself, so just coming up, like, do you come up with 50-50 kind of, like, we're going to do 50% of Smith, 50% of Morrissey, or how do you guys work that out as far as what songs you're going to play?
Well, altogether, I'd say we know about 50, close to 60 songs at this point.
Okay.
And for each show that we play, and we don't play too often, we don't like to oversaturate the market.
Yeah.
We do, a good handful of shows a year, maybe half a dozen shows. So each show we take into consideration, what songs should be presented. And yes, of course, like the first, ones that come to mind are the bigger hits. So those usually will get thrown into the list, and then we usually will put in a few ones that we just really love to play, at rehearsals. It's like, well, this one sounds really good. Let's just throw this one in the set. Somewhere in the middle is kind of see how it flies. And usually if the crowd knows they're Morrissey and Smith, they'll totally dig it. They're into it. So.
And so
we try to mix it up and do a good balance between the Smiths and Morrissey. I often will ask you know, at some point during our set, I'll take a poll, and it's kind of weird to ask how many Morrissey fans versus Smith fans there are, but there is a difference. It's kind of an interesting, you know, component to the whole thing, and just depending on the percentage of fans that lean either way, they'll recognize some of the more album cuts that will play every once in a while, and the responses sometimes are a bit surprising, but that's kind of the fun of it. We enjoy kind of mixing it up that way.
And I think what's working for you guys, even though he's still out there doing his thing, he does not tour as much as he used to, you know, back in the 80s and that, and so that's a cool thing for you guys, because you know, somebody that maybe can't afford to go see the real Morrissey, they can come check you guys out, and you're kind of the next best thing, you know. So that's a cool thing for the fans to come and see.
Right, and a lot of the songs nowadays, I mean, and especially like Smith songs, like the Smiths will never get together. So some people, this is their only chance to hear some of these old Smith songs. Morrissey plays it, you know, a few into his set nowadays, which is great. I love, you know, going to see him and watching him perform the old songs and the new songs. But you know, a lot of fans, you know, this is their only chance to really hear, you know, some of these older Smith songs that will never get performed live.
Yeah, so let me ask you guys, like, when you first got together and put the band together, you know, obviously, like you're saying, there's not the pressure of having to look exactly like the band members, but how long did you have to, you know, like, really practice and rehearse and get the moves down until you felt you were, I mean, did it take a couple months to really get all that down before you were at the point where you thought, okay, we're ready to, you know, try to do our first show?
You know, it was kind of funny. Now we a lot of our material is archived, and we have a lot of footage. And recently, Ralph kind of packaged it all together for us at a bit of a timeline, and I got to go back and see kind of where we started. And you know, as far as practicing goes, we usually tend to get together, you know, 3 or 4 times before a show to kind of get the songs down. But now that we've been doing it for so many years, it's sort of second nature. We really kind of don't need that much practice time. But to watch the evolution from where we started in terms of our style and, you know, just kind of how we performed, as we got more and more comfortable, you know, a bit of showmanship just started to show up with everyone, you know, with everybody involved, kind of a little bit of their own flair. Occasionally it's kind of funny when we're up on stage with each other and we're sort of looking at each other and kind of almost having our own good time while the crowd is watching us, and that's just something that's developed over time. You know, like anything, you're first starting my first show with the band, you know, on stage was my first time ever doing something like that.
Wow.
You know, it was a bit nerve-wracking, and now I feel much more comfortable getting up in front of hundreds of kids and giving them this show. So yeah, it's that kind of thing evolved. But as far as practicing goes, we'll get together, you know, every once in a while when we're not having shows, just, you know, keep sharp. But we're all really comfortable as a band together, so we kind of clicked really quickly.
Wow, and so let me ask you, Julian, you know, that kind of, you know, like, you're one of these guys that I would say you're kind of like what I call, not necessarily a natural singer, but you kind of grown into what you're doing, it sounds like. So, you know, that first show must have been kind of like you're saying, kind of the ultimate experience, because, I mean, you're doing this for the first time, you're probably up there worried like, oh man, I got all these people looking at me. I mean, but now you're at the point where you've been doing this 8 years, so, you know, if you necessarily weren't the greatest singer in the world when you started, you've got to, it sounds like you've kind of grown into it, and you become a, you know, more of a natural singer over the last 8 years, which I think is a cool thing, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and having these musicians, you know, to back me, it's kind of funny because a lot of times when we're rehearsing, I'll just listen to these guys play, and they're phenomenal. I got to tell you, it kind of gives me chills sometimes. So like watch Ralph play the guitar, and you know, Johnny Marr, you know, a lot of people are influenced by this band, whether, you know, they're the most popular band or not. His guitar playing is really iconic. So for Ralph to pull off this stuff the way he does, it's really, you know, it's fantastic. And for everybody to bring their best and come together the way we have, and just be doing it for as long as we've been doing it, is kind of it's a really great thing.
And talking to you, Julian, I can tell that you're also don't seem to suffer from what they call lead singer disease. Because like what I love what you just said is that the rest of the band, they back me up great, and I couldn't do it without them. That's a great attitude to have. But I got to ask you on that note. Again, being that most people that are Smiths fans, Morrissey is the one they have the eyes. Everybody's focused on Morrissey, and you're kind of in that role. So, do you ever stop and think about that I'm the main guy, but everybody's looking at whereas the rest of the band, they kind of get up there, just have to play their instruments, and you're kind of a main guy that's got to really be focused on what he's doing.
Well, I definitely have my job to do when I'm on stage. Being a bit of a focal point, but there's also so much that happens musically. I like I'll sort of remove myself during certain portions of the song so that the band is kind of the focus. Or, for instance, this last show we played, I can't recall quite the song that it was, but there's this great guitar solo part, and I just kind of in the middle of the song when I wasn't singing, I just took a bow and pointed at Ralph so that everybody could sort of see, by the way, this is happening right now, people. Make sure that you're paying attention to the other guys in the band, because, it's a collaborative effort. It's not just me.
No, that's cool.
I know that people focus on the singer, but, and the one thing I guess that is part of my job in this is that a lot of people want to take pictures with the singer. So after our set, it's usually I'm the one getting mobbed with the pictures, and the guys are they're going back into our equipment. They're packing up their equipment, and they're going to get a beer, and meanwhile there's a line, and what do you do? It's the kind of thing that comes with it. But I definitely try to make sure that I'm not, because I don't have ego in that sense with regards to what we're doing. I know it's everybody. I know it's a 5-piece, and we all bring our best to make this happen.
Yeah, I mean, let me make the point here, if I haven't already. I agree with what you're saying. That it takes every member of a band kind of brings something to the, to the picture. Kind of brings their own influence into the band. I guess the point I was trying to make is like you go to an AC/DC concert, typically. Everybody's going to be, all eyes are on Angus Young, doing his thing, run around in a schoolboy outfit, where the rest of the band can kind of, do their thing and relax. That's kind of a point I was trying to make here. But now let me ask you, Ralph, as a lead guitar player, I think you're saying that you first became a fan through Morrissey and his solo stuff. Now, when you first became a fan and heard this music for the first time, I was curious, was it more of a guitar playing that you kind of took notice of, or it was just...
No, I think it was, for me, it was the music and the song that he was singing.
Yeah.
His vocals were, nothing I'd really heard before. I wasn't too much into that style of music. I was more into the harder rock, metal, sort of indie stuff that was going on, James Addiction, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and heavy metal stuff, and death metal stuff. And so this was a complete change, and it was a change that I was welcoming, and,
Were you kind of surprised?
That was more, the pinnacle point was just his voice and the music.
That's kind of interesting, but I would think, too, that would make you that better of a musician than, a guy that's kind of into hard rock and metal and alternative music, where if you were to play that type of music, you kind of could pigeonhole yourself, but, playing different types of music, not just playing what you listen to, I think would make you that much better of a musician. Would you agree?
I would agree with that. And our other guitar player, John Marietta, we brought him in maybe a year or two after we started the band, and I had known him for, almost all my life, and then he was a great guitar player, so his influence is even, a little more different than all of ours. I think that adds also to our sound. He's a little more to, maybe I would say, 60s, 70s rock.
Oh, okay. And so, talk about people that come to your show. Obviously, they're Morrissey fans and Smith fans, but do you kind of get all ages, or what do you see as far as the people come to your show that you notice?
It's a kind of a broad range, honestly, because a lot of the fans who were listening to the Smiths, back in the day are obviously a bit older now. But we play shows like 18 and over shows, and young kids are go crazy for it. I mean, really just devoted fans, and so the music has kind of transcended a little bit. And obviously Morrissey himself is still putting out records and touring and stuff. But the older music, the generation that is listening to it and coming to our shows, it's really fantastic. I've had moments where the crowd up front of the stage, I had those sort of like, oh man, these people are going to rush the stage.
Yeah.
They're really into it, and then some of the older people will come up afterwards and say, you know, I've been listening to this forever, and I've never really heard anybody kind of pull it off the way you guys have. And they, again, going back to the experience they have listening to it, listening to us, it's quite a broad range of as far as ages. And
so I imagine you guys typically stick to the classic material. But let me ask you, like you're saying, he continues to put out new music. Would you guys ever dare like throw in a track from his most recent album, or you committed just to sticking with the classic stuff?
We try to put in current stuff every now and then. What happens is, because we're playing gigs that are usually kind of really themed around the 80s feel, what'll happen is we'll throw in kind of a more current track, and you can sort of see people paying attention and being into it, but not really kind of going nuts. And so that's kind of part of the balance that we do when we put together a set list. We're like, okay, let's throw in maybe this newer song that isn't as well known, or a deeper album cut that maybe isn't so well known. But it's really important a lot of times to the promoters at these clubs that because they want the crowd to that energy level. So it's kind of a fine balance, and sometimes we haven't traversed that as well as we could have, but we always, we keep doing it, we keep coming back.
Yeah, it's a balancing act, like you say, because like if you play something off the latest Morrissey album, you risk the chance that, like you said, half the crowd's probably never even heard of it, but they're more aware of that classic material that they're coming, and hoping to hear.
Sure.
Yeah, and so let me ask you guys, like, you typically, I guess, do shows like with other tribute acts, or you ever do shows with original acts? I mean, what's your typical show like that you guys put on?
Our typical shows, probably for the last, I want to say maybe 4 years, have been just a DJ sort of doing his thing for the first part of the night, and then we'll come on as the only band that performs.
Yeah. Wow.
Featured act.
And so,
and afterwards, the DJ will continue spinning, music of the 80s.
And so, do you guys?
But we have played a good few shows with other tribute bands, which is always great, and they're of the same genre, not necessarily Smith and tribute, Morrissey tribute bands.
And that's great. So, do you guys typically do like House of Blues places or big theaters? I take it.
No, we'd like to actually. We play. I don't want to say smaller clubs, but more like clubs, like dance clubs almost, that have the capacity for like a stage.
Okay.
We played a number of places that honestly, one of the clubs we frequently play at over in Pomona. We get crowds of 500 plus kids in that club.
Wow.
So they're pretty decent sized club venues. And we've been playing more shows where we're the featured act, and what would really work in terms of what we're doing is to play, if we were going to play with other acts, is to kind of keep it within the same sort of genre. We did play a show once where it was kind of a original band, and you kind of have this mixed crowd who isn't really kind of it's a little more difficult to sort of win people over in that sense, because they're not familiar or they're really not there for that. So either we're playing a show where we are kind of the featured act, or playing with another kind of 80s tribute band.
I think
kind of the way we roll.
I think that's a smart move on your part. Now let me ask you again. If you go on your Facebook page, it's quite obvious you guys are a tribute band. But let me ask you: have you ever had anybody mistake you for the actual Morrissey band or the Smiths?
For me, I'd say no.
Okay.
I'm gonna say no. I have, at this point, every once in a while, when I mention that I'm in this act, in this band, someone will not actually know who the Smiths are. They won't know who Morrissey is, and it's kind of interesting to me, just from the standpoint of like, wow, this is a pretty iconic singer and band, but there's so much music out there, and a younger generation maybe isn't that familiar with it. But I think I'm pretty sure that people coming to see our show know who they're coming to see because they're fans of Morrissey and the Smiths.
Yeah, because I gotta be honest. As I sit here talking to you guys, I'm not much of a fan of either. Now I can say I know who Morrissey is. Obviously, I know. I've heard of the band the Smiths. I could honestly probably not name one single song for you, but I bet, like a lot of people, if I came to your show, I might be surprised if I listen to the songs you guys perform. I might be like a lot of people come to realize, you know what, I've heard more of these songs than I actually realized. Do you have people come to the shows kind of telling you, oh, yeah, I wasn't aware that they did that song, but okay, that's who that band is?
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I could see that happening, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great thing about, too, what bands like you guys do, because you're really keeping the legacy alive. Like you said, in the sense of, talking about the band the Smiths, I doubt we'll ever see them perform, together again. So if it wasn't for bands like you, people might never get a chance to hear that material live ever again.
You actually just made me think of something, because we did play a little while back with an original band, a friend of Ralph's, who had wanted to kind of do a show with us. It was a really fantastic show because their band had a very kind of an 80s sound, but they're an original band, they're a new band, with Tramps and Stereo. Fantastic band. And what happened was they had their built-in crowd. They kind of opened the show, and then we played after them. And I had several of his friends, the lead singer's friends, come up to us afterwards and say, I don't know the Smiths, but after watching us play those songs, they kind of became a fan of that music after hearing us play it. So that was kind of a really cool experience to introduce someone to music that they hadn't heard before.
Yeah, now let me ask you, Ralph, obviously you're a more seasoned musician, so I was curious, I think you were mentioning earlier that this is not the only band you do, but you have other projects. Could you share any of those other projects with us? Are they original projects?
Those were original, but those are back 20 years ago. This is my only band that I'm playing in now, and this is my only focus as far as musical outlets go, is doing the Strangeways thing.
Oh, that's great. So you guys don't do this full time, and you have, I imagine, other jobs that help pay the bills.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, well, and all the respect, I gotta say, I'll respect the world for you guys, because it's a cool thing to be able to, have the opportunity to, put on a show like this and still, be able to do your day job. That's the greatest thing about, doing something like this.
Well, it's certainly for me. For all of us in the band. I mean, we've all. It's not like we're in our 20s trying to take over the world, right?
No.
But in doing this, we all get so much out of it, just because people are so pleased and so elated after a show, and everybody someone comes up to them and just gets a hug or like a handshake and says, "You guys were really great." And for us, that's kind of the payoff, really. We're not gonna become millionaires doing this, but we definitely are affecting people, and that really is fantastic.
Yeah, and bringing up the fact that you guys have day jobs, I think the cool thing about that would be too the fact that maybe you go all week to your day job and like 9 to 5 like typical people, and then you have these weekend gigs to look forward to. It must be a great way to kind of get all your stress and your angst out up there on stage doing what you guys do.
I think Ralph gets a little bit something out on that guitar.
Yeah.
He plays the show. He rips it up on the guitar. So I'm going to say yes for him. For him, it's a little bit of an outlet, but it also it lets us be sort of rock and roll stars for a night.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a great feeling that you have the ability to go and you have a little band that you guys play in that you love, just get to go and do what you love doing. I mean, even if you're up on that stage for 90 minutes, it's got to be a great feeling knowing that you're performing for people come to see you guys.
Sure, I think I don't know. I'm going to speak for Ralph here, but I think the people that know us in our sort of day life, if they come to see us do this, it's surprising to them to see us, in this different light, as this band who's doing this and giving it our all. It does sort of surprise people a little bit to kind of see that there's this other side.
And let me ask you.
For me as well, one of the greatest feelings is being on stage my brother Raul's on bass, and my, longtime, good friend John is, on the other guitar, and our drummer George, who we all just, love so much, and he's been in the band, now for about, 3 years.
Wow.
We all just get along great, and so even when we're not playing music, when we're just hanging out and just being goofballs, it's a love of like this brotherhood of friends.
Yeah. I call it this little band of hooligans.
And then so, do you think part of that is that you guys were friends to start with? Because, a lot of times bands get together and, they perform great together, they create great music, but, and then they just get to the point where they hate each other and can't stand each other, but yet they make great music together. What do you think is it about you guys that keeps the friendship going?
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, Ralph and I knew each other for quite some time before we kind of embarked on this journey. And I know he was friends with John for a long time, and his brother Raul obviously is his brother. So there's relationships that existed before this band came together. I think the newest guy, our drummer George, who's not necessarily new, but he's the
new guy.
He's just such an easygoing guy. He's so interesting and cool, and that's part of what I think the magic that exists in what we do is that we all kind of really just get along just as people.
And let me ask you, Julian, like people in your everyday life, like when they come to see you perform for the first time, are they kind of surprised, like, oh wow, I had no idea that you could sing like that? What's that like?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, we had that experience. I had that experience this past weekend.
Wow.
Several people who I've been friends with for quite some time came to see us for the first time, and the first thing was wow. And that's a nice feeling,
Yeah.
It's nice to let people in on something that I'm passionate about, and they don't get to see.
And like you were saying, Ralph is a more seasoned musician, but I was curious, when you and him first got the idea to put the band together, would you say that he had a big role in making you feel more confident in your ability to sing these songs?
This is all Ralph's fault. I had nothing to do with any of this. I'm just going to say that on the record. I had been scheming for years. I think he had. I really believe he had been scheming for years because, like I said, I didn't even know that I could sound like Morrissey, so it wasn't something that I was trying to do.
Yeah.
We started with, like I said, just a hobby of getting together and kind of doing these songs. And he called me one day and said, "We got a gig." And I kind of didn't know how to respond because he was pretty excited about playing, and so I didn't have any intention of doing that, but I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
So I just had to be a performer and say, okay, we're doing this, and between the band members and just the audience reaction to us, even in the early days, it definitely made me more confident in getting up and doing what we do. I think over the course of so many years, I definitely would say I've gotten better.
Oh yeah, like anything.
Because it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't something that I had intended to do. So certainly vocally, it's been a great kind of a learning experience and something that I can take with me now. And who knows? I like the idea. I like to think that you never know what's going to come your way. So,
that's what makes your story so cool to me. That I've heard so far. I mean, the fact that you weren't necessarily a guy that's been doing this for years. You kind of just fell into it because you had this love for this music of the Smiths and Morrissey. And the great, I've listened to several singers that, again, didn't start out as, singers, but they could write songs and they became singers from, like writing great songs. And if they'd had somebody else cover their material, maybe that person couldn't have sang the lyrics with as much, heart and emotion, if you know what I mean. So I think it's great when guys, like you fall into something like that.
Right. Well, again, I'll say it again on the record. This is all Ralph's fault.
Well, thanks, Ralph.
Actually, I have thought every once in a while the thought crosses my mind that maybe because Ralph is such a good musician, and I don't know, the thought has crossed my mind if maybe at some point, this could turn into something else for us.
Maybe, yeah.
You never know.
You never know, and And the fact that, like, again, that Ralph is a more seasoned musician, like, maybe he has a better ear for things. I mean, you talk about a guy like Eddie Van Halen, who's, you know, one of the greatest guitar players all time, and then you learn the guy can't read a lick, you know, read a lick of music. You know, that just amazes me, you know. But again, it just you never know. And let me ask you, Ralph, as far as the guitar playing in the band, do you kind of do the flashy solos, or are you kind of a guy who does all the lead stuff? How do you guys go about figuring out who's going to play what part?
For the most part, I do a lot of the lead part, the melody part in the Smiths, because there's not a lot of guitar solos in the Smiths. And Morrissey's solo songs, there's a little more of that flashier stuff. And I'll usually do those songs, but every, you know, once in a while, like, I'll look to John or learning a song. I'm like, hey, John, you know, you play this one this time. Or, you know, you learn this part, and I'll learn this part, and I'll play the rhythm part, you know. And the job. But for the most part, he likes to be more the rhythm guitar player on some of the songs. And that's, you know, and all of us, I think, when Rick says, and, you know, the whole band says, you know, hey, well, you know.
And do you guys ever...
I mean, our drummer's, you know, been a drummer forever, and he's knowledgeable and knows how to read music. My brother is with my bass, also plays guitar. He's played music all his life.
Wow.
Our guitar player John, he's been playing music since he was a teenager. So we're all musicians.
That's great.
Before playing in this band.
And so does the band ever break out, like, you know, in a so-called jam session, or do you guys pretty much kind of just stick to your...
It happens sort of accidentally because we'll be, you know, just kind of together practicing, and somebody starts to do a riff, and I'm a huge music fan, so every now and then I'll hear there's a riff, and then I start singing like the Doors, and the next thing you know, we're like actually like playing like a Doors song, you know, and I'm just kind of just faking like some Morrison stuff, and then, you know, and then another time we run the gamut. We play some crazy stuff.
And then Ralph, I would imagine
Queen, it's some REM, and Peppers. Yeah.
And Ralph, I'd imagine, you know, as a guitar player, you know, it's easy to get lost in your playing, but an important thing about what you guys do, I know, is you probably try to play, you know, most of the stuff note for note. But is it hard not to kind of bring your own influence, like, into these songs when you play them?
No, because I try to stay true to the music, so I learn it the best I can. And sometimes when I listen to like a Smiths record, there's maybe like 5 or 6 guitar layers built in there, so I have to sort of pick and choose, like, okay, which part stands out the most and that I can replicate on stage. And so, you know, me and John will both, you know, listen to them and like, no, he's doing this part, he's doing that part, so we'll tear apart the songs a little bit and try to figure them out that way.
You know,
that goes back to what I was saying about the authenticity of what we try to do on stage, is to really give it the classic, you know, experience. Because people, you know, at this point they're listening to these CDs, these songs over and over, and they're hearing them and they know them the way they know them, and so for us to go up and kind of make them our own wouldn't be true.
Oh, okay. And let me ask you guys now. As far as like you had a show the other night. How did that show go? I think Saturday night was the last show you guys played.
It was kind of crazy. It was really great. The crowd more or less sang every song along with me. They were just nuts. They were so into it, and singing and dancing and throwing flowers up on the stage, and just like
they were throwing money.
They were saying, we got some money. We got some money thrown at us. I mean, they were. It was a really, really great crowd. The show we played before that Thursday night, we actually had a couple stage crashers. I got tackled on stage.
Wow.
It got dangerous for me.
It got a little crazy, but I guess it's a, you know, testament to what we're doing and who we're playing for. These kids really, really love this music, and so I just have to say to myself, we're doing something right if they're getting this kind of ramped up by it. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a great. Now, what's that like for you? You know, and the whole band. You know, when you're up there and the people in the audience are singing these songs word for word, just right along with you. That's got to be like, okay, we're doing something right.
For me, as a lead, it's the energy I get is just, it's off the charts. I mean, I can't speak to the rest of the band as far as how they feel or what they get from it, but for me, it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, the
more the merrier.
The more we feed off of them, and it's just.
And the last, the last thing I was going to ask you guys, like you said earlier, that you would that you put together like a video where you can kind of see the evolution of a band. Would you guys ever like post something on that on your webpage? Because I think the cool thing about something like that is, you know, not only does it allow you to kind of see the evolution. Oh wow, I look different, you know, 5 years ago or whatever. But I think it would help people to really see all the hard work that goes into putting on a show like what you guys do.
Yeah, we've actually our Facebook page is really kind of the main source of information for us, and we do have a website that really needs a bit of revamping, and that's an interesting idea to sort of kind of.
Yeah, and we do have a YouTube channel that has a lot of our videos.
Oh, okay, so we'll go check that out. Anyways, let me just say,
last 7 years.
Wow, we'll have to check the YouTube page out, but I haven't had a chance to go on there yet. But Julian and Ralph, I'd like to both thank you guys taking time out of your busy schedule to do this. I'm not exactly sure when this is going up, probably a couple of weeks or so from now, because we got some other stuff to get posted first, but we try to do kind of in order that the interviews are done, to be fair to everybody. But I want to thank you so much for taking time to do this, and anytime you want to do it again, keep my information. Been great talking to you. Anything else you'd like to say to all the people out there listening to this?
I would just say, hey, listen, keep listening to the Smiths, keep listening to Morrissey, and come check us out whenever you can.
Okay, and like
thank you whoever listening to this for sticking around for the interview and for listening to your page. And I think you're doing a great thing for the tribute bands and, you know, telling their side of the story of why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, nobody else is, you know, telling that story right now. So I think you guys got great stories to tell, and it's about all, you know, spreading the love and spreading the word about all these great tribute bands. So that's what we're here to do. And I want to thank you guys so much for taking part in this. It's been a pleasure talking to you. So once again, just before I let you go, whatever pictures you'd like us to use with this or anything, you guys can send me your email, and I'll give you my email through the Facebook page, and we can go from there.
Absolutely.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Check us out on facebook.com/Strangewaystribute.
Yeah, go check the band out there. That's how I first found out about the band, and on the Facebook tribute page where you find about all kinds of great tribute bands advertising there. So you guys have a good night, and I'll be in touch. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.